Good morning, everyone. My name is Travis Shirley, and it's great to see everyone here. And this is my first time back in person since COVID, so it's great to be back in the room with you all. I actually saw a rainbow coming in the building. It's kind of right over this building, so that's got to say something about it. So, as a little housekeeping note, everyone that zoomed in, if you would just keep yourself muted unless you want to say something to us, and keep your video on. That way, when we vote, we can get a good count of our yays and our nays. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to John for his opening remarks.
All right. Well, I don't know if I can beat a rainbow, but good morning, everybody. It's good to convene with you again. It's good to see you, and happy belated New Year. So as always, we have a theme for our board meeting today, and today's theme is setting 2023 goals. And what you're going to see here in a little bit when we get to agenda item number 6 is how we intend to run each of our board meetings this year and how we intend to present our progress in attaining measurable outcomes that will kind of move us forward as an organization. So that'll be coming up shortly. I'll leave you in suspense until we get to that portion of the meeting today. Now, with that, I'll turn it back over to our board chair.
Okay. Our first item of business is to approve our board minutes from December 8th, 2022. You all should have received those minutes in your packet that Deronda sent out. Do you have any comments or questions regarding the minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
This is Beverly Ford. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Beverly. I'll second.
Okay, this is Beverly Ford. I make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Beverly. And the second?
This is Bob Biltz. I second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'll move on down to the executive committee updates from January 12th. Our executive committee met on January 12th and covered several agenda items. First, John provided a brief update on their work participation initiative. And he reported that the strategy was to help each county identify their respective talent pockets for targeted recruitment. Then he notified us of an upcoming meeting with the Kentucky Secretary of Labor, Jamie Link, to discuss state support for the Blue Oval and Envision projects. And he also conveyed his intent to conduct a mid-year review of the WEO contract. That intent, we're going to evaluate the health of the contract so that the board can make an informed decision later on this spring. And for a budget update, he informed us of the plan to roll out $170,000 forward in Q1 in order to ensure that we have enough operating funds for June, July, and August. Are you going to speak on that later as well?
I can.
Okay. No, it's not.
Yeah, actually, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
And we closed out the meeting with John's performance review and pay raise consideration. Our evaluation measured John's performance in 3 key areas: meeting strategic goals, job description, essential duties, and key competencies. And we found John's performance to be excellent. He's doing a great job. This board and the things they're doing here, the Workforce Development Board, has been improving by leaps and bounds. This is the social media Leslie's doing, all of the new programs. Everyone here is doing an excellent job. So we're very proud of John and his team. So as a result, the executive committee authorized a 3% raise for John. And that's all that we have from our executive meeting. And I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Holland for our financial report.
If I could jump in real quick. So our slides are frozen, but Holland, I mean, the financials did go out in an Excel document in the email. So I think Holland can speak to those while we're working to get the slides unfrozen. So Holland, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning. I hope all is well. So the financials we are presenting, that's for the 7th month of our fiscal year. As we know, when I remind everybody, that our fiscal year starts in July. And so now we are the 7th month, and we can see the time is already kind of flunked that point. So we will be very close to talking to our auditors for this year audit. And hopefully the audit would start sometime in August, and we will have results after a couple of months after that thing. So to annual budget, it's at a 2.8 million or $2.9 million budget what we have right now. It changes once we have the new funding coming in from the state, or the state gives us additional funding. So that number would change, and the column E, which is the second for the year-to-date number, and then actual January 31st. So we are kind of managing very well. As we all know, our all contracts pretty much are cost reimbursement. So we have to spend the money to collect the funds as well. So the annual budget 1.7, year to date 1.7, and actually we spent 1.742. It means that we collected, or at least billed, more than what we year to date. And it's a good thing because we did receive additional funding during the year, so that helped us to collect the additional funding as well. So, and the sub-grantee, our budget is $2 million. That's on track as well. 1.2 we already spent there, so that's coming along good. And for the board expenses, we can see at the bottom for the board, it's like an actual budget $820,000. We have year to date 517, and we spent 510 year to date. So it means we are managing very well at this point, and try to cut the cost the way state want to make sure that we are kind of in line, not going over in certain budgets and what have you. So right now, everything is working fine. And we don't see any risk for leaving money on the table, as well as going or overspending the funds as well. Any questions, any concerns at that point?
Okay, I guess we're cruising right along. So we'll move this forward. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
I'm sorry, Hold. I thought you had something else. So if no one has any questions on the financial report, can I get a motion to approve?
This is TJ. I'll make a motion.
Thank you, TJ. There a second? Thank you.
So
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Corey Morley seconds.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll go down to our strategic goals.
All right. So let me kind of set the stage for this. You know, as always, we always finish every one of our board meetings with a strategic goals section, and we really frame everything we do as a board around our strategic plan and our 4 strategic goals, our strategic plan and those 4 strategic goals. I mean, that's our contract with the board, with you. And so we feel like it's important that we always report back how we're doing against the goals that we've articulated in the plan. And so we've been doing that for several years now. And then as I came on board into this position, one of the things I did was I started to set kind of a theme for each of the board meetings throughout the year. So I just want to show you what that's going to look like. So for what we did this last year, we're going to do it again this year. So this year in February, for the February board meeting, we want to articulate, hey, what are the big goals that we're going after this year? And we're going to preview those to you today. Go forward a slide, Brian. In April, we will focus on strategic goal number 1 and report how we're serving employers. In June, we'll hit strategic goal number 2. That's a good time to talk about how we're serving students as the school year is just recently wrapped up. In August, we'll hit strategic goal number 3, and we'll focus on the different programs and services that are focused on assisting job seekers. And then in October, we focus on strategic goal number 4. At that point in October, we have just gotten back our external audit from our MCM CPAs, and we will have just gotten back our results from the state audit as well. So, you know, basically getting 2 sets of audit results, that's a good time to look at strategic goal number 4. And you guys can kind of assess how well we're doing based on, you know, an external look by the state and an external look by an accounting firm. And then go forward a slide. And then in December, you know, we've been doing this for several years now. We try to do a year-end review. And so we've had that kind of methodology for the last couple of years. What I'm going to do a little bit different this year is, let's go forward a slide, Brian, is what we're going to show you today is a very specific set of goals, some aspirational goals and some very specific goals for strategic goals number 1 through 4. And the intent is we're going to show them to you today, and we're going to show them to you at every meeting throughout the year. And this dashboard will pop up all throughout the year, and it'll just kind of keep a running count on how we're doing towards our goals as the year progresses. That way, we're not just coming to you in December where, you know, and saying, well, here's how we did. We want you to kind of see our progress along the way. And there'll be a little bit of a dashboard format that you'll see. So with that, so that's the methodology. So the first thing I want to show you is a couple of aspirational goals that we have. And I call them aspirational because what all these 3 have in common is they are not in my direct control. These are things I'm going to have to do my best to influence folks through the power of persuasion or dogged persistence. But I'm going to try to make these things happen this year. So let's go forward one. So the first one, and this has been a long dream of this organization, and we kind of let the dream, we let it go for a little bit while COVID happened. Really, with everything that COVID caused, we quit pursuing this for a couple of years, but I want to pursue it again this year. We have 2 Kentucky Career Centers in our region, Bowling Green and Glasgow. The Glasgow Center is actually fairly nice and fairly new, fairly recently remodeled. But the one in Bowling Green is fairly decrepit. I mean, it is an old building, and it's my personal opinion that we do not put our best foot forward as an organization when we invite people to come down there. That building does not inspire confidence whatsoever. And so I want to get us out of there. So that's the aspirational goal. Can I get us relocated somewhere newer and more professional? Chad, Goodwill. Yeah, you do. Goodwill wants me to come over to them. So that's the goal. I've already been socializing this with the Secretary of Labor and with some other cabinet level officials. The Secretary of Labor has basically just said, "Hey, John, make a business case for why this makes sense." And so I will be putting that business case together this spring, and I'm going to convince him that it's the right thing to do. All right, next. All right, the next one, and I feel good about this one. You know, last year we were really successful in securing a $392,000 grant to get 4 heavy equipment simulators. We got them. We not only got them, but we got a high school program off the ground, and that's really SkyCTC got the high school program off the ground, and that is running right now in the Warren County ATC. As we were meeting as a steering committee from the beginning, the vision was a high school program and an adult version program. And so the last thing that we need to put in place for this is we need to get a summer program up and running. So right now, the real limitation right now is only 1 instructor, and that 1 instructor is a full-time teacher during the school year, but once school lets out in late May, then he's freed up for the rest of the summer. So we're talking with SkyCTC about getting a summer program going. Right now the funding stream that I've got that I can earmark towards this is the tornado money, and you'll see that in the comments. We have tornado funds specifically for folks from 4 counties, and so I can very easily use that money to help fund folks into this program. And that's what we're gonna be shooting to do. And that one's yellow because that one is moving along pretty well. I mean, Sky CTC is planning on it. They're
Mars commented. Yeah. What does that say, Jessica, in the comment?
yeah,
CTC is fully committed to making this happen.
yeah, that's what I was about to say, Dr. Myers. That's right. I mean, you guys have got the curriculum kind of, you're working on that curriculum and, I think this is gonna happen. And, we're here to support Sky CTC and getting this off the ground. All right, the last one, okay. And the last aspirational goal I've got is, I've got 2 externally funded positions right now. One is Mike's position at Fort Campbell. That's being funded courtesy of the Warren County Fiscal Court in the city of Bowling Green. And right now he's funded through April of this year. And so in about a month, I'm going to be sitting down with the new Warren County Judge Exec and city manager and to seek an additional round of funding for Mike's position. And then Anna St. Christopher, who is our new American navigator, who's been doing some amazing work. She's funded courtesy of a tornado grant. That grant, right as of right now, expires in December. So we do not want to lose Anna once that grant concludes. And so I'm already planting seeds and looking for ways that we can secure funding for her position. So I'll pause right there for any comments or thoughts or concerns.
How many students do you have for the heavy equipment training program so how many would you expect to have in the summer?
I don't know that yet.
I can answer.
There was a
this.
meeting yesterday that I did not attend.
That's Dr. Myers.
Yeah, Dr. Myers, if you want to take
Yeah,
that.
I can tell you, and thank you for the opportunity to share. I can tell you that we currently have 22 students. We have 24 start the program at the Warren County ATC, and 22 of them will finish successfully and earn some NCCER nationally recognized credentials. So we're excited about that. Relative to the summer program, our goal is to do that, if not immediately, fairly close to immediately after the school year, to catch both students coming directly out of high school as well as opening it up to the general adult population. What we're able to accommodate in that will depend completely upon equipment. The employers have been very responsive and very supportive of that. From their standpoint, are also working with their vendors on equipment. So the size of the class that we'll be able to offer, or whether or not we do multiple iterations, will depend upon that resource, frankly, but also the demand. But we're committed to doing whatever we need to do to meet the demand and the need. We'll get it figured out.
You know, what I've told Dr. Myers, I think it was in an email yesterday, but what we would like to do is as soon as we kind of get the details of this figured out, is get in and start working with some of the high school career counselors, identify the kids not in some of the surrounding counties, identify those kids that would be candidates for this, that and so we can start trying to recruit early, so that as school graduates, we've got a pipeline ready to go. All right, any other questions about these aspirational goals? All right, if none, we'll move this thing forward, and I think I'll turn this over to Brian at this point.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, friends and allies. Thank you guys for carving out some time this morning to hear updates from us, but we certainly have carved in time to get feedback from you. So this is the give us direction, give us feedback, see how this resonates. But I'm going to try to explain those dashboard concepts that John was mentioning. So just to kind of remind everybody, we're not going to use, for those of you guys that have been longtime board members or watched us in the last year, we used to kind of have like a rainbow box, and we would sort of put a dot and an arrow, and we would sort of approximate if we're making progress. And of course, we were always making progress and always felt like it was substantial, but we never like always landed on the other end of that spectrum. This dashboard concept, we think, with the tracking numbers, is actually going to give us more of that power or ability to exceed that. And so that's what, again, we want to show you guys kind of how we're thinking about this as a team. And so as we relate to strategic goal number 1, that's the one, fully engaging employers, developing solutions, and trying to meet their workforce needs with what we can do or what we want to build with them. And so the very basic measurement we have is how many engagements we can have with a business. So this would be pretty much any two-way conversation that we would have with a business. What this will not be is unduplicated number of employers that we've served. So we could have an employer participate, as happens, in about 3 different job fairs throughout the year that we host and organize, and that's going to count as 3 different engagements because it takes 3 different amounts of effort, and they might get 3 different batches of candidates from that. And so we will, likely exceed 600 if, we're doing multiple things and employers are engaged with us in multiple ways throughout the year. But you can see from the description there, again, labor market information. So if a company wants to know what's the going rate on a press operator, machine operator type of thing, we can get to a database, look that up. Josh, newest on our staff, he's already been doing that with some of the businesses that he's co-located with at the WKU Innovation Campus that stopped by and pick his brain about that, and he can run those numbers. And we have often done that. Matt Bacon, when he was on our team, did that quite a bit. We've all kind of been able to do that, but when we do specific recruitment assistance, help, give candidates right to the doorstep of an employer, those things is, what we want to be able to track better this year. And you'll see how we want to show that on the job seeker side here in a moment. But any kind of even presentations where we can get in front of them, all of those things will count as engagements. So, this one is one of the few that we're going to show like our running total, but we typically have a data meeting once a month. So I just want everybody to be clear, like everybody that's on our team with career team and career development office and the board staff, we meet and talk about this stuff and we keep track of it on all these different sheets. We don't just cobble it together before we have a board meeting. So, but what's not really fair for you today in February is to see kind of what we did in January, because we're still refining how we're collecting all of that, and we have that plan to get finalized by next week. We will have that monthly meeting next week. So you can see kind of the running total there. The direct job seeker referrals to employers. So this will be part of the activity that will happen through all those things above, but if we have each of our focus populations, again, you'll see in a moment those numbers, we anticipate having easily 1,400 referrals. Again, one job seeker that we refer to maybe 3 different companies is going to count 3 times, so it's not going to be unduplicated. But this is our effort to try to connect job seekers straight to employers. We will do our best. Again, you'll see in a moment to track how many got hired from those things, but this is anytime we are facilitating an introduction. So if that can happen through a job fair, and we know, and the thorough follow-up that we will do, that candidates move forward, they got considered, it wasn't just a speed dating thing that happened, that they're actually moving forward with the candidate, then we want to know that. And certainly anytime that we get wind of somebody who is well qualified and we've got a connection with an employer and we're putting that to their attention, we're getting more formal with that kind of structure, especially at Fort Campbell and the work that Mike is doing. And so we definitely want to keep up with how many times that's happening. Hiring events. So we told you in December that was the most requested thing that we had going on. We had a very phenomenal start to a big job fair that we will share in a moment. Frank will give that update, but this continues to be a strategy that we're seeing, that if we can get people in a room together, it's just like the real world concept from the 90s. When people live in a house together, things happen. You get people in a room together, things happen. And good things are happening, not risque and controversial stuff. So it's the stuff we want to see happen. But if we could do at least 20 events, and we want to show you guys as we're doing those, how many that are going on. So anytime we're involved in that. So there's going to be times we're going to assist employers, and there's going to be times we're flat out hosting the event and generating the traffic. And then lastly, the workforce participation issue, as we keep collecting data, as we keep wanting to share strategies and tactics, uncovering pockets of people that are not in the workforce, people that may be underserved, that are not taking advantage of a lot of public and nonprofit services that are available that could connect them to employment opportunities. We're gonna have an update on that with One Pocket today for you, but if we can at least get in front of 75 employers and tell them strategies, tell them about who is in our backyards and give them advice about how to reach those pockets. That's the number that we were going to track specifically there. So again, I'll do like John and just pause right there. And again, we'd love to have feedback, especially those of you guys that have been on the board for a while. Does this sort of better solidify, the contributions of the workforce system for the employers?
This is Bob Biltz. I like this format much better than the other one. The rainbow one was kind of non-affirming, if you will, because it seemed like that needle moved microscopically and was not indicative of the effort to move the needle.
Well said. Thank you. Okay. Well, we will roll right on to strategic goal number 2. But again, if anybody has a thought or finds a related idea here. Oh, I'm sorry.
They think those are good
Yeah.
goals.
So what do you guys think about the actual numbers that are displayed in red there?
Lofty goals, but I'm sure very achievable by this team.
Yes, I agree. I think these are great goals. And as she said, lofty, I've been involved with one opportunity that you've been involved with another business. I know how much time that took. So you guys are really writing a big check for lots of time spent with the employers. So I appreciate that. This is good.
Yeah, Gretchen, that's a good point. Sometimes the visits or the engagements might be back and forth email or some phone calls, but sometimes it is hours long discussions or engagements, especially the event-based stuff and the pre-planning, the post follow-up. It does take a lot of time. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate and beat this dead horse, but we're going to show this every board meeting, and you'll see kind of that running total grow throughout the year. And that's just meant to keep everybody informed on how well we are doing towards achieving each one of those goals.
Do we have anything that gets a breakdown by county?
So Beverly, that is tracked internally, but I was trying to keep the dashboard pretty high level and simple for the purposes of just for each of the board meetings. But I think we will definitely be able to show that in December. We can get into that level of detail.
Yeah, if you could send that out by email, that would be great.
Okay, I'll make a note.
Yeah, thank you guys for this feedback. So next up, we want to talk about one of these engagements, and it wasn't easy, but we pulled it off. So I'm going to let Jake and Bianca from Career Team update you guys on a rapid response effort we did.
Microphone.
Yeah, they'll have to grab from the thing.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Jake Brown. I'm with the Career Team and the Workforce Board as a business service representative, along with my counterpart, Bianca, who's also here this morning. We're going to be taking a couple minutes to talk about the rapid response that we did last month at Camping World. To my knowledge, this was the first rapid response we had done in maybe the last couple of years. So we had to update our policy, learn a little bit more about that, and ensure that we were ready to go. We first heard about the terminations at Camping World on, I believe, Tuesday, January 17th, and immediately held a meeting with their corporate representative to know a little bit more about that and how quickly we could come on site. So by Friday, January 20th, we were actually on site to actually hold the event. So it was a very quick turnaround, and all of our partners who we invited came together in great show of coordination. So we were very pleased with that. In terms of the numbers, Camping World actually ended up terminating 70 total employees from their distribution center in Franklin, Kentucky. By the time Bianca and I arrived on site, 54 of those were still there. So about 16 of them had already found other work or had left the site. And so out of the 54 workers that were on site, about half of those attended our rapid response. So 27 folks attended that. What we understood from some of the higher level folks there, many of them had already found other work. So they kind of knew a little bit about this and had found other work, but 27 still needed our services. So we were able to provide that. Some of the partners that we had on site, we had Career Development Office, mostly handling unemployment information and some promotion of our upcoming KCC job fair that happened on the 24th of January. You'll hear a little bit more about that after we're done. We also had adult education on site. We had SkyCTC officials to discuss some higher education courses that they could take advantage of. Goodwill, so Chad was on site as well. We had transitioning military services. Tony Germando was there to talk about any military services folks. And then Shannon Gotke was also on site to discuss career edge and resume building help that anybody might have needed. So again, out of the 27 workers, we made sure that every single person completed a rapid response intake form. So when the event was over, we made sure to reach back out to them, learn a little bit more about their status and how we could help them. So by Tuesday of this week, February 7th, we had reached out to every single person. About half of those did not respond, so we left voicemails, and our plan is to reach back out to them again next week as a second call. From the other half, what we learned, many of them are going to be filing for unemployment. I'd say about half of the 27 will be filing for unemployment once they're officially terminated on February 14th. And then another half, we would say, had good positive outcomes. So some of them are going to be going back to school, which was really pleasing to hear. All of them received great information from adult education and SkyCTC from that event. And then another group of those folks found work. So according to what we learned from those responses, on Tuesday, January 24th, when we had our KCC hiring fair, 5 folks attended that event from Camping World who would not have previously been to the event. So we were also very happy to hear that. Just quickly from the picture that you can see on the screen, I wanted to give you a little bit of information on the setup of the room. So on the far left side, you can see all of our educational partners were there. So on the end there, we had adult education with SkyCTC down towards the bottom of that table. And then on the right side, we had AJ from CDO, who was actually talking about unemployment, handed a lot of forms out to those folks, and also discussed with them the upcoming KCC job fair that happened the following week on the 24th. So that empty table there was also for our rapid response intake form collection. So that's sort of the setup of the room. But any questions or any comments on that?
I'll throw in some color commentary. I mean, one of the things that workforce boards are charged to do is whenever there's a layoff, if a company's going to lay off 50 or more people, by law, the company is supposed to notify the state. In this case, Camping World did. And then we got word from the state about this layoff, and but we only had about 3 days notice, but we got it. But what we're charged to do under the law is offer rapid response services. So everything that Jake just described is part of a rapid response. Go work with the employer, go in, meet with the impacted employees, and just give them information about what's available to them. Of course, our desire is that they all immediately go, continue to work somewhere else, but they have other options available to them, and we have to present all the options available to them. So it really on 3 days notice to be able to pull together all the different partners to show up and to pull this off is something that we're pretty proud of. I mean, that normally you'd have 3 or 4 weeks notice. In this case, we had 3 days, and we were able to pull it off. So from my perspective, it was a job well done by everybody, by all the partners, and I'm appreciative of that.
All right, well, we'll move on now to Frank, our one-stop operator, who will tell you the outcomes and just his feedback about the hiring event we had on January 24th.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Frank Garabata, the one-stop operator. John and I were talking about what I was going to say, and he asked me to provide a little historical perspective. So we were talking about a dilapidated building that we operate in. Back in August of 2002 was the first time I entered that building. Man, I must be old. Back in the days when it was under the Office of Employment and Training, and we were called the Bowling Green Area Career Center. I've seen many job fairs. I've seen many people walk through that building. I've even witnessed the our coming reputation as the unemployment office when we literally saw people wrapped around the parking lot so they can walk into the building and file their paper unemployment insurance claims. But on January 24th, I have to tell you, we had actually 335 job seekers come into our building and meet with 24 employers. Pretty significant, 23 employers. I say 335 attendees. Of those 335 people, I can say one person visited with one of those 23 employers 9 times. I'm going to call that an employer job seeker engagement. We had documented 709 employer job seeker engagements on that day. I've been there many years in that building, and I have never seen wall-to-wall people in there looking for work. And in the spirit of cooperation and teamwork, I have to hand it to Matt Bacon and his career team staff, and Renetta and the CDO staff for that teamwork and that cooperation. Everybody that came in and signed up for a particular employer were literally hand carried to employer. And they saw those employers actually spoke with somebody. That's what I'm talking, 709 engagements. And to me, as a one-stop operator, again, it warms my heart to see the spirit of cooperation among the partner agencies that are in that building. I mean, we were all working together, going up and down the stairs and just having a good time, but we were really helping those job seekers engage with employer to try to get them back to work. And hopefully in a couple of days, we're going to hear some positive results, the results being you're hired, with a lot of these attendees that came to that building. But again, it was, in my opinion, a great success, and hopefully we're going to have more of these in the future. I don't know if we're going to have them in the Career Center, but even back in 2002, it was a dilapidated building, by the way. But, hopefully we'll have these. I know we're going to have these in other locations, but I think having it in the Career Center, again, in the spirit of cooperation, partner agency staff gave up their cubicles, gave up their office spaces so that employers can meet with the job seekers. And again, to me, it was a great success.
All right, I'm gonna do one more comment. I'll do another color commentary. You see 18 confirmed hires. I mean, we're still, this is one of our biggest challenges is what happened. What happened? And so there's a lot of phone calls that are taking place every day to these employers like, hey, you know, we know you saw 22 people, how many got hired? So, you know, it's a constant battle to try to track down what happened. Now, there were several people hired on the spot that day, and I want to turn it over to Jacob Bianca. I want one of you to tell the best news story we got out of that day.
Yes, there was a gentleman who came in, and he was actually a pretty high level person working in a company from one of the 10 counties. And he was like, are there any jobs you think that are here for me? And so I didn't want to give him any information until I went and talked to the employers around and decided that we would do that, and talked to several of the manufacturing companies and asked them what kind of managerial positions they had open. And one company was so eager to talk to him, they were like, send him back right now. So we sent him back, and he came in making $64,000 a year and left with a managerial position making $80,000 a year. And not only that, but he was so ecstatic. He honestly said, I could cry right now, right here in the lobby. And if you know Jasmine Bass, by the way, she did not allow him to leave until she got a picture of this person with his new bag and him smiling. I mean, she was very intimidating to him. I think she honestly scared him a little bit. But no, we were very pleased about it. He was definitely happy. So I'm glad he came in, and he walked away very, very happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's a note up here on that second bullet. The thing that pleased me was that we also tracked of the people that came in, who were employed and who were unemployed. And I was very happy to see that 2/3 of the folks that came in were unemployed. That's good. But we want to see people unemployed seeking work. That's not been a phenomenon that we saw a whole lot of in the last year or so. So that to me was also very, very encouraging.
Yeah, so what's funny is that in our world, when 18 people show up to a job fair, we say, what happened? And when 335 show up, we say, what happens? Because, you know, it's always about how did this work, or why did it not work, or how do we get the word out better? But I want to remind everybody, we highlighted a job fair at the December board meeting that happened in November. And so we had over 250 people that showed up for that one. So we are getting, we have maintained, or we have developed, I don't know, the third one will be telling if we have a trilogy of these, right? Where we have over 200 or 300 people show up to a job fair. But both were based in Bowling Green and heavily promoted. I mean, but we used every corner of social media that we could, and a lot of shares got shared by shares, right? Like, so it was very word of mouth on social media, which we always need as well. So.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that. I was going to speak to that point, that it seemed like social media was a lot more saturated this go around than in previous attempts.
Yeah, and Robin, you're right. And the thing is that it was because people were sharing it. It wasn't, I mean, we were putting it out initially, but it was the shares and the reshares, and it's that power of sharing that really got it out there. It wasn't because we were doing paid advertisements. But that's why Leslie is always imploring all of us to include board members. If you see something of ours, please share it, because if somebody you know shares it and somebody they know shares it, the next thing you know, you're getting that kind of saturation.
All right, we'll move into strategic goal number 2. And again, just to kind of help digest this, we've got several things that we're going to always track, but one that we specifically want to have a goal for. So engagements, this is going to be those kind of group things that we do. We are currently doing these things, so this isn't something we're going to start, you know, after today, but we will give you that running total by the next board meeting. But anytime we're up in front of students, influencing, informing, sharing resources and tools, we keep up with that number, and we're going to have a separate one for the high school students that we engage and the college students that we engage. The career services is the things that can happen in a career center, can happen outside of a career center. So you see some examples there. With students, it can get a little bit more specific in that often it's about pointing them to financial aid resources that are available. And there's several entities that are in this space, and some counselors are more informed and practice this and make sure students take advantage of these things. But we want to still complement where we can come in and help with those efforts. So we'll be tracking when we have those kind of unique engagements, one-on-one visits. So kind of the first one would be group, and career services would be more one-on-one. And then out of those one-on-ones, we want to see again how many direct referrals that we can do. So we're going to have quite a bit of activity that happens every spring engaging high school students. That's why you see that number and that goal so high. And we may be able to exceed that. I mean, if we can get 200 college students, each connected to 3 different opportunities, we're going to see 600. But anytime we can confirm that they were connected by, you know, something in person or phone or email, that's happened, either the employer can confirm that or the job seeker can in our follow-up efforts. And we know that they're a high school student or a college student, and we're going to be keeping track of that. So again, we're going to give you guys a moment to give us some feedback on that. And then again, as best we can, known placements. So this is the one where I mentioned it a minute ago, but if we can definitely say that somebody was hired and started work at a company, as best we can know that, and that's anybody who works in the space knows that that's a little bit hard, because sometimes people don't call you back and sometimes the company contacts don't share that. But I think we've moved the needle on that. It just feels like we have developed a lot more solid relationships where we are getting that kind of good information. And Chad did this for many years when he worked here for the board. I mean, it's just an everyday sort of struggle. And sometimes there's turnover with your contacts. So you lose somebody who answered every email every time you sent it. But that's just the world we are in, trying to know that people landed a job. So I'll stop there and pause and let you guys kind of reflect on this and give us feedback.
For that second area where you talk about FAFSA and college app assistance, are you all planning to have separate events from the KIA events that are typically occurring in the high schools and in the community, or are you all tapping yourself onto those events and just gonna maybe send some counselors to help out with those that are.
Yeah, that's a good question. That kind of coordination kind of comes down to the local school, college and career counselors and what they let us know about. And Matt can tell you kind of from his experience in the schools.
Yeah, and with Kia, it's kind of a mixed thing. So our plan is to be out in schools, at least one school every week throughout the spring semester, helping with a number of those things. The FAFSA dates, usually the big date on that is October 1st, so that's kind of already passed, but still help those late students. But it's in coordination with Kia. A lot of times we're in the same space, and it's more of a, we'll just like an open, kind of like an open session type thing where any students who want help can walk down. So if we're there with Kia, you know, Kia's got a table full of students, we'll get them started on FAFSA as well. So I guess complementary, not competition. Yep.
So one example, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but one thing that a scenario that could potentially happen is one of the things that'll happen is the SCK launched job fair, and that's been traditionally, like Warren and some surrounding counties have been invited to it, high school seniors. But there's some prep work that often goes into that, and we are allowed sometimes to go into the schools and help the students prepare for that event by having a resume and, you know, getting some advice. But it could be in one of those one-on-one engagements, if somebody's talking to them about FAFSA and they say, well, I never went to that stuff, you know. I mean, they could just opt out, right? And it just like, well, no, I didn't know what that meant. And I can admit as a high school senior, I didn't pay attention to that stuff, even when they announced it on the speakers, right? Like it was, might as well be speaking another language. It wasn't on my mind. I wasn't thinking about it until I was thinking about it. So that's a little bit of how that can happen too.
Well, I think, you know, when Matt was in this role last year, I mean, he would go in with the intent of talking about career preparation, career services, but he would come across a lot of students that they didn't realize that they could go to Sky CTC. They didn't see it in themselves. So that then turned into a conversation about FAFSA and encourage them to look into that route. And so it's not our primary thing, but it's certainly we consider it a service if we help get a student going down that path.
Yeah, a lot of it is teaching them how to navigate those things. A lot of them don't have parents that went to college, so their parents aren't familiar with financial aid or any of that. And a lot of those kids think I'm going to have to pay for this myself, or that's what they've been told. They don't understand that they can, you know, they may get a check back every semester in the mail. It's really where a lot of that comes from. It's just parents not having the familiarity, so stepping up to help that student. Sure.
This is Leslie Whitty. I wanted to mention too, Shannon Gottke, who does our access point visits. She's known as the career coach on call. She visits every county in our region, and she's relayed to me on multiple instances that she's had people come in. They could be parents, you know, they could be people who just got out of high school, but she has personally helped people out in the county with FAFSA and things of that nature. So I just wanted to mention that too.
Yeah, it comes out of that. Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to, oh no, before we get to strategic goal number 3, Matt gets to give us an update about what some of that outreach to students will look like as far as what career team plans to do.
Okay. Yeah, this summer we'll be having, I guess, our second annual CDL cohort up in Hart County. We'll be doing that again this year. In addition to with Dr. Myers heavy equipment program up and running, we look at targeting some of the counties for those recent graduates to get into heavy equipment operations. They didn't have the opportunity to do it in Warren County, or their county just doesn't have it available yet. So we wanted to give them an opportunity to go through that. Miss Anna, our new American Navigator, has been visiting high schools to teach students about all the training opportunities available to them. Much more than that, I'm sure, but that's what I've seen from her. And we'll be adding on to that with myself and Shannon, doing the resume workshops and individual resume help in preparation for that big event at the end of the year. I know Leslie's got some speaking events coming up on branding, so that'll help us going into those resume workshops. As far as the May 5th event, the May 5th senior hiring event, which will be at Greenwood High School again this year. We are adding on additional counties, Butler, Edmondson, and then all the Bowling Green and Warren County high schools will be included, Barron County as well. So that's expanding out further to other counties. I mentioned there, Anna, we've been going around to some of the places. Anna's been a lot more places than I've been this year, presenting to new Americans about all those training opportunities and ways to get funding for them. The kind of jobs they can lead to, the salaries they have, what other jobs they can lead to. And then, yes, that last one, the career exploration and hiring event. That'll be the culmination of the year. We'll see how many we can get hired onto there, or at least make contact with, and then see how many students we can roll into the summer as well to get registered for these training programs.
All right, thank you, Matt. We'll move into strategic goal number 3. And so this one is about increasing workforce participation and working with specific pockets outside of students to remove barriers to employment. So this sort of lands with our 3 other focus populations that we currently have staff for. And we hope to retain staff in all 3 of these this year. With some of these, we only have this year. And so that's what, is going to be a big financial goal that John already mentioned. An aspirational one is to attain perpetual funding for these. But as far as what we aim to have them doing, again, on the engagements, speaking engagements, Mike's getting in front of transitioning soldiers every month in several groups of those. Anna's getting in front of ESL students at the schools, but also doing a lot of, nights and weekends and, whatever it takes sometimes to get in front of audiences. And then, of course, there's always specific pockets in our justice involved in reentry populations, whether that's recovery centers or, at the jail level with people that are about to get out, and any kind of group that's clustered together that can give us an ear that's in any of these focus populations. We're going to be tracking those because those often materialize into people that do want to have career services. And again, you see what we would count for any of those things. Just a quick example for both reentry and New American, we've been able to have some sort of clustered resume workshops where we've actually got them to come into the Career Center and get help. So they could do it on their own, but a lot of times digital literacy or, there's nothing better than just standing over somebody's shoulder to make sure they get something done. And so this is where we are, bringing them in, working with partners. Sometimes they get transportation there, like the reentry group. If it's a recovery center, we'll bring them in. So we've been maintaining some relationships like that. Of course, as Leslie was mentioning, Shannon is sort of the visiting traveling person that can do this as well. But when we can, we try to cluster people together and do this in a group setting. So whenever that would happen in a workshop, we would count that as career services. And again, when we know that we've been able to do a direct referral and connect them physically or by email or phone to do an introduction, you see kind of a running tally there. And again, we think these are very conservative numbers, and then we will continue to track out of those how many are getting hired. So thoughts, feedback on these numbers in red once again. And I should also add that we will do our best to also coordinate efforts with the local career, center, each of these pockets, because when Anna helps them personally, she knows who she's helped. When Aaron and Jana know, they know. But if somebody actually lands at Career Center first or for their 3rd visit, we want to know that the focus populations are coming into the door and getting these kind of help. So again, any feedback on this? Looks good. Why not?
Approved.
Approved, yeah. So I think what's going to happen is hopefully by the October one, we're going to just have already met these or sooner, right? And then we'll just be showing how much over the green we're going.
Well, then we'll have a better number for next year. We'll have a
Exactly.
more realistic set of goals. But I will say all the goals that you've seen so far, we have tracked a lot of data over the last couple of years. So we've looked at a couple of years worth of data to, we didn't have the data broken out exactly like you see it here, but these are estimates based on the numbers of folks that we've seen over the last couple of years.
So we talked about a moment ago, Matt was mentioning about, support to the students. I want to show you a very specific project, just a little preview that we're working on. This has been a big project of Anna's and with our new American population, but we want to have a multilingual, what Anna's dubbing an interactive guide. And what's going to make it interactive is it's basically going to be taking information that could probably be found on a website, but making it really condensed and then translate it into a number of different languages and also with audio functionality. So there will be sort of introductory slides and videos that will show people in their language. So they will kind of, the vision is they'll go to our website or wherever the landing page is and they'll pick their language. So if this thing was all in Spanish, then they're going to get an explanation in Spanish of how to use the guide and what it's trying to do. But we've got sort of 5 main categories. So the 4 have been here for a long time, and I just added a 5th one this week because there's so many miscellaneous things. It's like once you have somebody's attention, oh man, I got to tell you more. And so some will just fit into like a miscellaneous bucket. But let me just kind of pick the employment one for a minute. So again, this is going to focus only on sort of employment and education. So this will not be how to get rental assistance. This will not be how to get clothing. Or maybe some more immediate, needs that somebody might have. The more resources could point to some of those things if they exist in other languages. It may point to more specific things that maybe like a high school student could use for career guidance and somebody with more proficient English skills. But at bare minimum, somebody comes in, and this is again kind of trying to empty what's in a lot of our heads and put it onto a guide. So if we were meeting one-on-one and coaching somebody, we're trying to make it very simple and explanative that people know the ecosystem of workforce services that are available. So for employment, again, they can hear a message, they can click a button here and hear this menu be read to them so that they know number 1 is this, number 2, and so forth. So if I pick number 1, then that's going to get broken down between the job coaching programs that can provide services. All of these will be free ones. And then the types of careers. So this what we found would be a good opportunity to sort of give people an explanation of what's available. And again, we're not assuming anything. So we're, other than they may not know any of this stuff. So no matter how long they've lived here, no matter how old they are, whether they're a teen, or if this is the grandma looking on behalf of her grandson or, son or daughter, we want all audiences to be able to use this. So for the coaching organizations, these are, 8 of the main players in this space. Goodwill did make the list, Chad. So no. No, this is not a ranking order. I will be clear. Yeah. So Roxana, we're not saying anything about Boca Rehab, but other than it is a V, so maybe it would be 8th. But anyway, let me just show you again. They're going to hear an audio button about what each of these are. But if you really don't know, you really just have to click on them to know. It's going to be so hard to kind of give a description on each on one sheet. So if you picked on the board, for example, we already had a nice little graphic and a postcard. So we're just using that. And we already have that in different languages. So that's what would be shown here with sort of this quick checklist of services that are offered. We hope to include a picture and an address and phone number. The name, may or may not be there. Some programs are bigger than just one person. Ours has one for now, but we want to give a program contact. But here's what could get really interesting is, all right, what's the next step I could take? Well, I could call, but what if I could, click here and fill out a little request form? So what this thing will do is allow them to pick their language. And so again, I'm going to just stick with English and then do a little short form intake. So if they're doing this for themselves or they're doing it for someone else's benefit, then they'll fill out their information and they'll tell us a little bit more about who they are, best way to contact them, best time of day, what's their most important need, and what other needs do they have. Very short, simple, to the point. We've tried this in other versions in the past and other years. So again, this will read in their language. As best we can work with all of the partners that can provide translation services. But The idea is when the receiving agency gets this information, they will know whether an interpreter is needed and what language they need an interpreter in. So Chad, you get some of these for Goodwill. They're going to show up in somebody's inbox, but when you guys reach out, you'll know how to reach out to them. So I'll go back to the guide for a moment because that took us off the guide. So if I went back, I wanted to learn about more, then there's going to be more. If I wanted to go back to the types of careers, we've got the 5 main ones that our workforce board is committed to serving. There, of course, exists many more clusters, but let's look at advanced manufacturing. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but KET came out with a series of videos that were filmed in local Kentucky companies a few years ago. And they've tried to use it on their education arm, KET, you know, public television, and make it more for youth. But we thought it was good enough for adults and for everybody. So there would be a short description, again, in their language. So imagine if this was in Burmese, or you could click that button and hear it in Burmese or Swahili, and then they would continue. And we've embedded videos, and I'm not going to share the sound, but KET has these, you know, 5-minute videos that are going to talk about what advanced manufacturing and assembly looks like, and with maintenance. And then they can go back to the careers and they can see that again with business, and a little introductory comment about that, and everything there. So what this ultimately needs, you know, for them to do is know who are the career training and education providers that offer these things. So there'll be a little bit more interconnectivity available, but we want to list all of the programs that WIOA funds, right? So all of the great programs that Career Team can help do, any other ones that are out in our region. So of course, WKU, SkyCTC, the TRIO programs that can do a lot more hand-holding with people. Gosh, there's just all kinds of things that we want to put on here. So this has been a dream. This has been a goal for years, is to kind of, short as we could make it, right, as simple as we can make it, make this a thing where people can just start to explore what's out there, because written guides are good, but this has a little bit more real-time nature to it, and that this is actually what you're looking at, a Google slide, but we've protected it where it can't advance and it doesn't have normal navigation buttons on it, so people can just kind of skip the order that the logic follows. So you know, they wouldn't just click on something and it goes somewhere else. So anyway, we've got big plans, and we're working with a lot of partners to try to get this, you know, off the ground, and the English one has to get done first. And then we will be using interns that are multilingual, that are funded through the Tornado grant that we have. We've got about 5 of those deployed under different nonprofits and agencies. And then we will be working as best we can with other volunteers and other partners to get other languages. So we hope to have at least, you know, a handful, maybe a half dozen languages that this is available in. And then we start broadcasting it. So feedback on that.
That's really good.
Great job.
Thank you.
I think this is a wonderful program and resource. So I'm excited to see it blossom and bloom.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay. Strategic goal number 4, and this is where I hand the baton back to John.
Back to me. Okay, all right, well, let's go for, so strategic goal number 4, just as a quick reminder, it's kind of our ROI. It's us stewarding all the resources that we steward from the federal government, and making sure that we're going to provide a good return on investment for what we do. So, I mean, I wasn't sure if Howland was going to mention this, but so one of the goals that I had set was there were some additional COVID monies out there left, kind of sprinkled across the state, and there was some additional tornado money sitting up in Frankfurt. So I went out and requested that, and to my surprise, I got it pretty quickly. And so just in that last month, I've secured an additional $579,000 for us to use. 79 of it from COVID, and an additional 500,000 of tornado funds. So that adds to our coffers and gives us a little more flexibility and spending power this year. As I've been telling the board and the executive committee, you know, our WIOA funding has remained relatively flat over the last couple of years, but the spending power of it has gone down because of just due to inflation. So the 1.5 million-ish I get in WIOA, that had more spending power in 2020 than it did in 2022. And so, so we're watching that closely, but it's these additional grant sources, COVID and the tornado that allow us to keep providing a very high level of service in the region. So we've actually met that goal already. I perhaps shouldn't have used it, but but I'm proud of it. So it's good. We're got it. All right. Okay, rebalance spending strategy. So this was alluded to with the comments about the executive committee meeting in January. One of the things that we've got to do this year, and this has been kind of a learning curve. It's a little bit of a learning curve on our part. It's also a little bit has to do with how the state has kind of restructured some of our budget, or how we get our budget. But what we've got to do, what we've been doing the last few years is, if we get 1.5 million in WIOA on July 1st, we spend 1.5 million by June 30th. That's been our modus operandi the last couple of years. Well, the change is that we've got to hang on to some of that now and roll that into the first quarter, the July, August, September period, because our money, we do not get our full tranche of money on July 1st. We only get a fraction of it on in early July, but the big tranche comes October 1st. So what we've got to do is we've got to roll over about $170,000 of our current funding into the first quarter, and that 170,000 that we roll over will get married up with the small tranche of money that we get in July, which should come out to close to 375,000, 400,000. And that total amount will allow us, between the board and career team, give us the operating budget we need to get us through the first quarter. So we're having to kind of back up and slow down our spending so that we can roll over 170,000 into the first quarter. And that's a change to our modus operandi, but that really kind of stems from some things that have come down from the state. So we saw it early, and I think we're on top of it. We've got to tighten the belt for the next 6 months, if you will, but we're in good shape on that. And so that is definitely in progress. All right. So on top of that, I mentioned that, the spending power of the 1.5 million in WIOA, continues to go down, but I'm, it's my personal objective is I operate this whole enterprise like a business. I mean, we do. And so we've kind of been going through and figuring out how can we offset cost? How can we reduce expenses? Where are areas that we can, cut costs? Last year, I was able to renegotiate leases with the state, and I saved us about $14,000, or drove down our lease agreement cost by about $14,000 last year. What we've already kind of done this year is we went through and we did a review of all the different subscriptions and things that we have been routinely paying for, and we canceled some, we've reduced some, and we've saved about $2,000 in just reducing some subscription costs. And then what I'm working right now is to offset about $7,000 of my salary, shift that $7,000 of my salary, shift that burden over to Employer, which is our nonprofit that we use for professional services and so forth. So so far out of we want to save 25,000. We're already 9,000 to the good on that, and so I'm going to continue to look for ways to reduce cost and reduce expenses throughout the year. And where I think I will really get to that is if I can move the Kentucky Career Center, I think I can save us a lot of money at that move. I can really exceed 25,000 if I do that. but that's aspirational, so we'll see.
Can too.
Yeah. All right, and then, I want to make sure that we continue to have a clean audit, with our external audit. That audit, generally that will get started. The auditors will come in early July and they'll visit us a couple of times and look at everything we're doing. They'll wrap up their report usually late August, early September. And then begin a series of formal reports back to the board on the results. And lastly, kind of the same thing for the state. The state's version is called a compliance monitoring. This year, they're starting it a little bit later than they have in years past. And so it's going to really run April to September timeframe. But again, it's the same goal. We want to make sure that as folks come in and look at what we're doing, that it's all above board and that we're doing all of our business in compliance per Department of Labor standards. So those are the five the goals that we'll report on throughout the year. Okay.
Any feedback on that from anybody in the room or on Zoom? Okay. To this.
All right, who's got this one? Oh, me. All right. All right, let's get one more. Okay, so so what we started doing a few months ago, workforce participation has really become a huge focus for us. We're really dialed in on that. I'm a broken record on this, but really for the last 2 years, that has been the most pressing issue in our region. There's just not enough people filling the open jobs that we've got. And we certainly have a workforce participation issue, and if we don't get on top of this, it's going to get worse with all the economic development and expansion that continues to flow into the state. I am bending the ears of lawmakers and the labor secretary, and I'm beating the drum like, look, economic development is great, but you can't pour all this money into economic development and not put resourcing and money into workforce development. Because these companies are going to come here expecting to get a workforce, and we're not filling our current workforce, and so we got to get this figured out. And so as I've reported all throughout last year, we've had a lot of meetings. We were able to secure resources. We've finally secured Josh's position back in October, and he is really getting into data. So let's go forward one. Our strategy, I guess our opening strategy and the way we're going to tackle this from the get-go is what we realized when we looked at workforce participation across all 10 counties. In Warren County, it exceeds the national average. It's very good workforce participation in Warren County. Outside of Warren County, it drops off significantly. So our strategy is to go county by county and really assemble employers in each county and tell them, like, here are your pockets, here where your people are, by demographic group, by age, by whatever, and then give them tactics and strategies to speak to those, to market to those pockets. So let's go forward a slide. So far we've got 5 counties scheduled. Butler County is actually complete, and you can see there Logan, Barron, Hart, and Allen counties, those are coming up. What we've done is we've reached out to their respective chambers of commerce. We've told them what we want to do, and we've kind of negotiated with the Chamber of Commerce in each one of those counties to get this put together. The main emphasis that we have is we're flexible on the date and time, but we just want to get in front of as many employers as we can. They need to hear this information. It's very valuable. And then go forward a slide. And so we have invitations out to all the other counties except Warren. I'm kind of holding Warren back because that one will be again, Warren County's in pretty good shape, but we'll have to do that one as more of a series of presentations. They're my last and priority. And then, so we're taking this approach with each county and providing kind of a county level view, but we've also dipped our toe into a custom report for an employer. So actually we've been working with Gretchen and Sumitomo And we've had a couple of meetings with Sumitomo, and we're going to deliver a very specific employer report on February 23rd. In that case, what we're doing is we're picking two of the Sumitomo facilities, and we're putting a kind of a radius around it, and we're going to report back on what those pockets are, who's within that driving distance radius, what do those pockets look like, how do you get to them, how do you market to them? If I could put a bow on all this, I think what we've kind of come to the conclusion on internally is we've really combed through this data. I mean, there are big pockets. There are really big pockets of people not working, and they're in our backyard. They're here. But the other thing that we have picked up on as a workforce board in all the things that we do with employers and all the hiring events is most employers are, I mean, they have one way to hire people. They have one message. They have one application system. They have one onboarding form. And right now the job market is such that you've really got to have a tailored approach. You've got to have a very tailored approach and marketing message to the pocket you want to go after. You can say, if you want to recruit new Americans, you can't tell a new American, okay, if you want to apply, go to my website. Here's a QR code, go to my website. Well, they're probably not going to do it because they probably can't read everything on your website and can't negotiate that on their own. If you're going to go after a 55-year-old and older crowd, which is a huge pocket, they're probably not going to be super tech savvy and navigate, web-based applications very well. They may need some help with that. And so you got to think about those things. And that's what we're trying to help employers think about those things, because the tactic and strategy and message you use should be able to impact your ability to recruit from different pockets. All right, I'll take a breath.
And I'll just say real quick, and Gretchen, I don't know if I'm the best one to say this, you might be able to say it better, but when we met with your team and we've met with Keith a couple of times too, he gave us some really cool feedback. So these are his words, but an exec at Sumitomo said that he was more encouraged to hear about this approach that we're taking, trying to show who's in the backyard and what pockets are available, than any conversations he's had with legislators or other people, because I know a lot of employers expect for Frankfurt to provide the support. And John just mentioned, when there's growth, that doesn't necessarily translate to us to more WIOA dollars. So we have a lot of economic activity and advancement, but not, if we're going to double the amount of jobs we have available, doesn't mean our staff size doubles to go reach out to all the pockets. So this is we both can do some work. We can try to get some activities going to get people's attention, but employers can do some things too to have a competitive edge. And that was just encouraging, Gretchen, to hear him say that, because we didn't put those words in his mouth, or we didn't come out and say we think this is better than anything else we've ever seen done. but he kind of said it. And he said it on a couple of occasions, that this gives him hope that yes, we've got to recruit people into the area, but it also gives something to kind of arm every employer with. On actions that they can take, and he hasn't seen sort of a blueprint for that. Am I saying that correctly, Gretchen?
Yeah, I actually had that in my notes I was making notes as you guys were speaking to speak to that. He's a part of the CAM leadership, and they have met with various legislatures and at the state level. And he said none of them are able to speak as coherently and as I guess, pertinent as you guys are about the situation, and the things that you're doing are actually make sense. They fit the issues that employers are seeing. So he has mentioned that multiple times. And even the day that we met with some of the other CAM leadership that came, they said themselves they were very encouraged. And I'll just say this, as a board member, I'm proud to be a part of this board, because they said this was cutting edge, what you guys are doing, and they're not seeing that in their region. So you guys are leading the way. So we appreciate that.
Awesome. That's encouraging. So yeah, thank you for that feedback. That's our aim is always to be world-class and lead the way. Drag everybody else along. Thank you.
So we wanted to just highlight one sort of, direction that this sort of research and digging is leading us to. So I'm going to turn it over to Roxana to give you guys an update.
Well, good morning, everyone. So I got to work with Brian and John for the last couple weeks, and I think we had some really great discussions. Brian was like, let's get the vendors that VR uses to help with job placement, and let's get them in there and see what kind of barriers, challenges, or successes they're having when they speak to employers. So we got a group of vocational rehab vendors together. And so there's different varying degrees of job placement supports that we use to help place our participants. So we have like support employment for folks who need some extra supports on the job. They might need to be there a little longer before they can fade out. Then we have IPS placement, which is individual placement and support, which is for individuals with serious mental illness and substance abuse. So they need a lot more intensive services. And then we have our traditional placement, which is employment and retention services that don't require such long-term support. So we have all kinds of folks that we work with. We got them all together and we just did some brainstorming. Brian led the conversation to kind of help us figure out where we needed to go. But we started off with talking about some barriers that everybody kind of faces that are in this particular field. One, probably the biggest one, we know consumers are very fearful of losing their public benefits, especially Social Security benefits that they've waited a long time to finally receive. So they're a little bit nervous about going back to work and maybe losing those. We know that Kentucky especially has that whole generational use of benefits, and that's a very hard cycle to break. And we also talked, like, we've heard the staff at Social Security tell our folks like, oh, you shouldn't work at all. Just use your benefits. Don't work because you'll lose them. So then we've got people from Social Security actually scaring the other consumers and making them scared to death to lose their benefits. So we have that challenge. Then we had lack of transportation because, they may not own their own car, or they may own a car, but it's not reliable. There's no public transportation really. So lots of different issues. We talked about very limited job opportunities, and especially some of these smaller counties. Some of these smaller counties, some of the job placement folks have noticed there's like some clicks going on where like, oh, like maybe they don't know you, or you have the wrong address, or your family's not so-and-so. So they save those jobs for people that they know, or, family names that they know, things like that. Then we talked about there's actually high turnover rates in the job placement field itself. So like even Voc Rehab, we're often always talking to a new staff person from these different agencies. So that's a challenge in itself, because then you've got to get these new staff trained. And while they're out here looking for these jobs, they're making $7 or $10 an hour. Sometimes they find the jobs they take the jobs they actually find. So there's that challenge in itself. Plus the educational piece, like how well are these staff being trained if, there's a high turnover and stuff. And we want to make sure that they're using like appropriate language and not really being off-putting when they come and meet with an employer, because we want to make sure that they're selling this in a positive light and not getting off on the wrong foot as soon as they walk in the door to meet the employer. There's employer biases where maybe they've previously had a bad experience working with someone who had a disability. So we want to make sure that like the employers are being educated on how to work with people with disabilities, or how to build a supportive work network around that individual with disabilities. So we have maybe some educational barriers that we have to work on. We have talked about the difficulties the job coaches have getting in the schools. Because, you know, if we can start at an early age, preparing these students, like this is just the norm. You graduate high school, you move right into a job. We want to work on like understanding how labor market information works and how to kind of understand what are growing fields and what's available in your area. We need to work on soft skills, interviewing skills, things like that. So like we really need those job coaches in the school preparing the high schoolers for graduation so we can just make a really nice smooth transition into employment. And then we have difficulty with applying for jobs electronically because a lot of our folks maybe can't afford internet. They may not have the new tech phone, you know, they may not be able to do it from their phone either. So, you know, these folks are like maybe having to go to the library to use the internet, and then maybe they just don't even know. So like we found that all the applications online sometimes are a barrier. There's the barrier where, you know, our folks may not be able to work the 10 and 12-hour shift at the factory that's required. So we feel like part-time options, application options can sometimes be a barrier for our folks too. Like we really could use some flexibility in the hours that our folks are being required to work. We do a lot of job carving, and that's where we can find like one particular skill and ability someone has, and they could do this whole job duty and not have to do the other 5 or 10 that's required. And we get obviously a lot of resistance from employers on that. So we feel like maybe some education on that too would help. But anyway, so those were some of the things that we had identified as barriers. And then what we were hoping is maybe we could get some information out to the individuals who receive Social Security and help them get a really good benefits analysis that shows them exactly how their income is going to impact their Social Security benefits. And Voc Rehab has people who do this for it, and they explain it, and it's all written down, and they go through it until they understand it. So it's not like we just crank out some numbers and hand them a piece of paper and go, you'll be okay, you can work. Like we really go through it to help them kind of understand it, make sure they can ask all their questions and feel a little bit more at ease. So that's one good thing that we could offer. And we were just thinking like, you know, how could we get this information out maybe to like a job fair or some event where we're going to have lots of folks who that, you know, we can share this with and help reduce those fears. We talked about being able to maybe have that person go into the schools too, but we really need to get the parents on board when we're talking to the high school students too. So there's that challenge. And we really felt like educating employers on tax benefits of hiring individuals with disabilities could be very beneficial as well. We wanted employers to also understand that sometimes there's very simple accommodations that can be provided on the job site. Voc Rehab can help provide those accommodations. And then there's also the JAN, which is a job accommodation network that's available for anybody. And it kind of helps explains like how you can get accommodations and what you can do as well. So there's a lot of education that we could get out there that we think might help. And I think if somehow we could kind of partner and like team up with Brian and any of his folks, like when we go out and like just make a nice little group that goes out, but not like an overwhelming group where there's 20 of us or something like that, but there's like a nice group that could probably get that real solid education information out there when they go out and together. I think that'd be great. But anyway, our groups decided that we had such a good discussion, but it wasn't long enough. We'd like to keep doing this maybe every couple weeks. And just see what comes out of it, because we did have some great ideas, some great discussion, and I felt it was really beneficial. So we're gonna try to keep doing this. So maybe next month we might have another little update for you. But anyway, I just wanted to share with y'all what we had gotten accomplished in our meetings. So thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Roxana. Excellent. Okay, any response from anybody else as far as this? Again, just one pocket out of many.
I was glad to see this presentation, Roxana. We actually had discussed this when the group came to meet with Sumitomo, that's a pocket of people that, especially when you have light assembly, everything we do pretty much repeats every 30 seconds. So, those are things that, so we're very open to that. And so I would definitely, as an employer, like to hear more about because one thing we talked about is these people have a coach. They have someone that's checking on them, making sure they're coming to work. That's a big benefit to us when we think about new employees, that they're going to show up. They got a support system. So I think that, employers, they just need to understand what's available. And, they may think disability, that definition is very broad, and it doesn't mean that they can be very simple disabilities that require maybe even no accommodation for a particular job. So I think it's misleading when we think about those terms that we use. So I think just the education and making yourself available to employers and counties. Like, I would love to sit in on an informational meeting that Voc Rehab had available for employers to ask questions, what types of people that you have that might be looking for work, and kind of partner together like that. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Gretchen. I mean, if you look at that on the slide at the American Community Survey data, really 2/3 of the folks in our region with a disability are not working. That's a huge number. That 19,000 people with a disability are not working. I'm sure a fair percentage of them can't, and that's perfectly fine, but some can. They just need some accommodation. And I mean, that's, again, thanks to Josh for kind of drilling down and identifying this pocket, and thanks to Brian and Roxana for digging deeper on this and seeing, I think there's areas of cooperation here where we can figure out how to get to some of these 19,000 a little bit better and convince them to come back into the workforce. So, and a lot of, I mean, and when we really peel it back, it's if I think that a high percentage of the folks that get the benefits analysis and they learn that they can have their Social Security and their disability and work, realize that's actually, they're not losing benefits, they're actually going to make more. And once they realize they can make more, they will come back in statistically. So that's again, just kind of uncovering this data and then having the right conversations. I mean, we think we can start to have an impact on this.
I have a quick example. We had a young man, he called me every week for probably 6 months wanting a job. And he had, I think his diagnosis is autism, and he was pretty adamant about the things he could do. And I kept, I was I tried to encourage him, but at the time we didn't have jobs for him. Well, finally, we found something for him to do. It took, the training time was a little longer with him, but he's been here almost 2 years, and he does everything. He does the specific job that he does. He has no problem with that. With his disability, it's stepping much outside of that. But, we almost missed that person because, we thought he wouldn't be able to perform those duties. So we've had at least one success story. There may be others that I'm not aware of as much as I am with him, because personally he called me every week looking for a job. So that was good on his part that he did that.
Persistence. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And Gretchen, I mean, you bring up an excellent point. That would kind of be considered employer participation, right? Like, we're talking about labor force participation for the job seekers and these individuals. But I think there's wonderful potential here. And, we continue to have many wonderful programs, sometimes niche programs that serve certain specific pockets and populations. And people keep saying, well, I didn't know this existed. I mean, Chad Spencer and John and I got invited to go speak in front of it used to be called the Warren Rural Association of Baptists, but the chamber, they renamed themselves to South Central something or other with that. And the Bowling Green Chamber set up that meeting, but it was about getting in front, and there were people who were prominent 35-year-long pastors at big churches that had no idea of services that were available and said as much in that meeting. And so if the influencers don't know, then people can't talk somebody out of knowing that there's a job available for them and there might be an employer willing to work with them. And they just take the advice they got from that Snappy and Tea office, as Roxana said, so don't worry about working because you're going to mess up your benefits, and that may absolutely not be the case. So, all right.
What she said about getting into the schools is very, very important, because in our office, we see a lot of students come in, they don't know about voc rehab. We try to promote that to them. We work really closely with Trista Adwell in Barron County. And we have a pretty good relationship, I'd like to say, with the schools, and they have a lot of parent nights. We're trying to push that more, especially with our first generation students and getting those parents to come in. So if there's any way we can partner, Roxana, and maybe bring you in with us when we go, like a group kind of situation, I'd love to do that.
That would be great. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, one of the staff said that she's had an idea for years about how could we get in front of even a PD day that teachers take, right? And get all the staff aware, not just the college of career counselors or the guidance counselors, but so everybody's equipped to know this information. So that will be probably a superintendent by superintendent ask that we would love to make. Yeah. So. All right, well, we stand here ready to possibly dismiss early. Uh-oh, I said it. But what, oops, no, let me go back. What questions, other discussion would anybody like to bring forward? And then I'll move to public comments. So anybody who's not. Oh, okay, Leslie would like to say
Okay.
something.
This is Leslie Whitty again. I wanted to give everybody a heads up. I'm going to be doing a post on LinkedIn about how great our board members are, because it's the truth. And I will be tagging all of you all in that post. So if you haven't already, please follow us on LinkedIn. So that way it will show your personal connection to the board. What Robin said earlier about the Bowling Green Job Fair, it's 100% true that we had $0 for promotion and we relied on shares. This workforce collective effort to reach employers, the audience that we need will be on LinkedIn. And you as board members can help us tremendously by showing you're affiliated with the board, by following the board on LinkedIn. And when I do a post about Workforce Collective coming up in Logan County, share it. You know, I understand Facebook. Some people, you know, you don't want to mess with it. You don't want to be doing a bunch of work stuff. That's fine. LinkedIn, if you can follow us, if you can share things, you know, whenever you see them, it really does help us. It helps our cause, and the impact, you have no idea how much impact and how much validation it gives us as an organization. So that is my ask for you. I've given you the heads up that the post is coming. So it would be good to be following that page when I say you're a board member.
That sounds like an order.
All right, anyone else? Okay, well, here is the date for the next meeting. So we'll continue to have it be hybrid. We love it when people come in the room. It's a little warm and toasty, but you know.
I was asking when I came in.
All right.
Before we adjourn, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. I loved the discussion that we had. and I love everything that's going on with this board. And I look forward to seeing you all in April. And we started out with a rainbow and we're ending with one 7 minutes early, right? All right. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great